Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. You know, one question I ask every guest on Everyday Martial Artist is about their favorite martial arts book. And there's never been one quite like Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, described as the art of war for the martial arts. Martial Theory helps any martial artist or instructor take their understanding and teaching to the next level. And at martialtheoryU.com, you'll find a global community with instructor groups, Q&A with Steve, live events, and demonstrations to help you apply martial theory directly to your training. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Find Martial Theory on Amazon, and when you join martialtheoryU.com, use discount code EverydayMA for 20% off. That's under $20 a month for life. That's martialtheoryU.com, code EverydayMA. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is a lifelong martial artist, instructor, competitor, and mentor whose journey in the martial arts spans nearly 6 decades. He first stepped onto the mat in 1967 at just 8 years old, beginning his training in Judo before finding his home in Kenpo Karate under the instruction of Paul Dye, former guest of the show. What makes his story especially unique is his unwavering loyalty to his teacher. From his first day of Kenpo training in 1972 through every rank advancement, including testing for both brown belt and black belt under the legendary Ed Parker, Paul Dye has remained his only instructor. When Dave Hebler's school closed due to his growing responsibilities as a personal bodyguard to Elvis Presley, training continued in Paul Dye's now famous garage dojo. That humble training space became the foundation for a remarkable martial arts career that continues to this day. As a competitor, he built an impressive tournament resume, capturing 8 consecutive Long Beach International Self-Defense Championships, earning multiple national titles, and winning championships in the United Kingdom in fighting, kata, and self-defense competition. In 1986, he began teaching out of his own garage dojo, where he has spent decades developing students and preserving the traditions of Kenpo Karate. His commitment to quality instruction has produced numerous black belts and impacted generations of martial artists. Beyond the dojo, he built his successful careers as a butcher, meat manager, and later as a safety consultant in the offshore oil industry. He is also a devoted husband, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather whose life has been guided by faith, family, and martial arts. When he's not teaching martial arts or working, he enjoys spending time with his family at their river house along the Colorado River, whether it's boating, riding Sea-Doos, exploring the desert in a sandrail or his trusty Toyota 4Runner, fishing, or simply gathering around the late-night fire pit. The river is where family and relaxation come together. More than 50 years after beginning his journey, he continues to train, teach, and inspire others while carrying forward the lessons passed down from his instructor and the legacy of Ed Parker's Kenpo Karate. Please join me in welcoming my guest today, Mr. Dave Thompson. How you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing wonderful, Brian. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for your time. I know we've chatted on the phone a handful of times since Paul recommended you, and I know you had some travel and I had some travel, and we were finally able to find a day that worked for both of us. So I truly appreciate your time and taking the time to be on the show for my listeners to hear about you.
Not a problem. Yeah, I just came back from Ireland.
Nice.
And we did a big seminar up there and stuff with Ed Downey and his group. There was over 500 people that showed up. And 7 different countries.
Nice.
It was wonderful. The people were great. We had a great time. A lot of instructors. I got to take classes from a lot of different people and, learn different things and share our Kenpo journey. And it was wonderful the whole time. It's taken me a week, though, to get from jet lag. I tell you what, man, I've been getting up early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and going strong for about an hour and a half and then crashing.
Wow.
So,
we had that conversation. I've never traveled overseas, but I've talked to a lot of guests that have. Well, I mentioned you started at the age of 8 and started with Judo, but I want to know what led to that. Why, kind of what was that spark? Where did that first interest come from? Kind of how your martial arts journey kicked off back then?
Well, where I grew up and stuff was not a good area.
Okay.
And a lot of gangbangers and fights. And I just basically the bottom line came down to is I just didn't want to get my butt kicked.
Okay.
So my parents had saw this judo class at a high school, and so I went to that and started to take the class. But my first day there was pretty scary for me because I just heard people ki real loud, a big loud shout, and then people hitting the deck hard.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm not sure I want to get thrown in the air and land on the ground. But, they decided, you should really try it. So I said, okay. And so I started with that, and I did a few years in that. I did okay. I was a young man. And so it was good for me. It gave me a good base. It gave me a good foundation, and started me with being more respectful and stuff as a young kid.
Okay. And you said you were about 8 when you started that. What rank did you get to before you left judo?
I got to green belt.
Okay.
I got to green belt, and I'd taken it for, I would say, maybe 3.5 years or something like that.
Okay.
There's a lot of kids,
Yeah.
and we went to a lot of tournaments and stuff, and it was great. I mean, it was a good beginning for me, because of the area I was at and stuff, where I lived and stuff. You could go sideways real easy.
Oh yeah. So do you remember your first ever judo tournament you competed in?
Oh yeah, I got my butt whipped real quick.
Okay.
It's funny. You sit there all day, like, all right, man, I can't wait to get in there, and then some guy slams you really fast. You're like, that was it. I paid my money, and I lasted like a minute and a half. And then I started going, and then one time my parents couldn't go and had to go with another family, and I ended up winning first place.
Oh, wow.
My parents were around. So the next time they showed up, I lost. And they didn't show up the next time. The next time I won, I took first place. I thought, well, maybe they just shouldn't show up. Maybe that's my luck. Maybe that's the thing. So
little superstition there. Okay.
I guess, I don't know what was going on in my head, but I definitely started getting a lot better as I started moving up the ranks and stuff, and I never had to actually get into a physical fight until 8th grade.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of little gangbangers and stuff. And I hung out with some kids that were also taking some sort of martial arts. And we were a little nerdy or whatever and stuff. And some guy went up to get me, and I slammed him. And everybody couldn't believe what I did because, I didn't look like I could do something like that.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It worked out pretty well. And then I started getting into to Kenpo.
One more thing on the judo, you said about 3.5 years. That first class, you had that hesitation. So once you got into it, what was it about it that made you want to keep going for those 3.5 years?
I think mainly it was something I thought I was going to be good at.
Okay.
I wasn't very good in sports and stuff like that. I couldn't hit a baseball to save my life. I mean, they would pick me, between me and one kid with one arm, and put me out in the outfield, That's how bad it was. You don't get a glove, you get a T-shirt to, try to catch a ball. So in sports, I wasn't really good at it. But this thing, I always thought, I think I could be pretty good at this. And it turned out to be okay, And plus, the other hand was it built my confidence.
Yeah.
That's what I really needed probably most of all. I couldn't, every time if I was up, let's say in class, you're brought up to the front of class, I just would lock up because everyone's staring at me. I'd get nervous. And so I didn't have the ability to speak in front of people. I was just, it was too much stress for me.
So then did you, after 3.5 years, did you decide you wanted to look for something else, or do you discover Kenpo and then decide you were going to leave?
Actually, the judo school there was closing.
Oh, okay.
And so it closed, and there was a black belt in judo that had talked to my parents and said, hey, you need to take more of this karate class that she just began at Dave Hebler's studio. And so my parents said, okay, where's it at? Blah, blah, blah. And so I said, yeah, I'd like to do something. I've never taken karate, and I've been watching Kung Fu on television and all this stuff. Oh, yeah, this will be great. I'd love to do it. And so I went there to that studio. And when I got there, it was another interesting first day.
Okay.
My dad had brought me there, and I see a kid come running in after the class had already started, and then he got his gi on, walked up to the mat, and stopped there. The head instructor said, go ahead and come on in. He went up to the front of the class, got in a horse stance. He ball kicked him about 4 feet down on the ground. Kid got back up and got in the class. I leaned to another kid next to me. I go, why did he kick that guy? And he said he was late. I went, I don't even drive. Maybe you should kick my dad, not me. If I'm late. My dad's like, no, we won't be late. I said, okay.
Wow. So that very first class, did you watch a class first or did you jump in right away?
Oh, no, I watched. I was too intimidated to actually get in the class. And then at the time, they had a program called an introductory program.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would do is they would assign you an instructor and you would go and have a private lesson. You'd get I would say they'd sign you up for a entry course that gave you 8 private lessons.
Yep.
And then you'd had to go in with the instructor that started your first class, and then go to see Dave Hebler, and Dave would say, this is what we're working on. What do you think? And it was kind of like a thing where you were allowed to join this club, not like we're just going to take you.
Yeah.
You had to be okay to do it. So that's what it was back then. And what was interesting, though, like I said, my first instructor is Mr. Paul Dye.
Mm-hmm.
And when he taught me my first class, he was a blue belt.
Okay.
And ever since then, I've just kind of been with him ever since then. I mean, I watched him get his brown belt and black belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when he got his, I think it was his brown belt, he took in Kenpo, they do either a punch or a kick.
Yeah.
And it kind of resembles a birth of a belt, sometimes like birth of a child, and you sometimes got to go through a little pain. Mm-hmm. I saw him get a cross behind back kick in the chest, fly about 4 feet in the air, and land on his shoulder blades.
Wow.
When the guy caught him, he got back up. And back then, whatever black belt instructor was there, everyone either punched or kicked you that was on the panel. You could have 25 guys up there. You'd take 25 kicks or 25 punches.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty rough back then. Back then it was a lot different than now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you weren't so much of lawsuits, liabilities and stuff. It's basically if you didn't go home with a bruise or beat up, then you didn't work hard enough. That's pretty much what it was like. And the guys back then, they were out there. There were some pretty rough guys that were borderline, not sure if they're all there or not. But man, they were tough dudes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So think to that first class you watched and maybe your first 1 or 2 private lessons with 3.5 years of judo. What were some of the things going through your mind? Because such a polar opposite for, 2 different styles, completely different stuff. What do you remember some of the things that were going through your mind? Just the comparisons from judo to Kenpo?
Yeah. I was so used to just walking up and grabbing somebody, yanking them around and try to slam them to the ground, either try to choke them out,
mm-hmm.
Pin them to the ground somehow. And not being able to grab somebody and start off that way was very different for me.
Yeah.
And when, I'm going to strike this guy. Now I'm going to hit this guy and I don't have to get so close. I thought that was an advantage because if I do get too close and I do get grabbed, I can at least take him down to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And back then jiu-jitsu wasn't the jiu-jitsu they do now. It was very old style stuff. And, it wasn't so much what they do now. So when I started doing the kicking and the punching and stuff, I really liked it. I thought, oh man, I can get to really like this stuff. They let us break boards and stuff, mm-hmm. and we thought we were pretty tough. And back then, Bruce Lee was the man, So we were like, oh yeah, we want to be Bruce Lee, and Chuck Norris and all those guys. So that's what we were looking forward to.
Okay.
But the beginning class was pretty intense when I got into the group classes. I felt out of place, but I felt a part as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So do you remember how long you were there before you realized that Mr. Parker actually knew Bruce Lee? Growing up a Bruce Lee fan, realizing that the system you're in, that guy's friends with Bruce Lee. That had to have been, for a kid, I suppose, that was pretty cool to figure that out.
Well, I'll tell you what was probably the first time I ever met Mr. Parker. Mm-hmm. There was this karate tournament he was doing. It wasn't the international. It was at a different location. He was doing some karate tournament. Actually, no, I take that back. I saw him at a karate tournament thinking, oh, that's the guy, right? And when I did go to my first internationals in Long Beach is when I actually personally got to meet him. And when we were there getting ready to go inside the arena there, I forgot the tape for my hands because back then you didn't have hand pads and foot pads. All you did was tape your fingers together or put tape across your knuckles. You'd tape your fingers together so they wouldn't get hung up and get broke, so they supported it better. You taped your knuckles because when you would punch and hit the gi, it would basically tear the skin off your knuckles. So the medical tape was just on there to keep the skin on your knuckles. So it was bare knuckle fighting back then. We didn't have headgear, nothing. We had a mouthpiece if you're lucky, and a cup. That was it. I remember I forgot my tape, so I had to go back to a camper that we had. My best friend was entering as well, and he stayed with my mom and dad. Well, my dad was a big talker. I come running back, and I told my best friend, I said, if you see Mr. Parker, make sure you bow to him. Make sure you bow to him, because it's that big respect thing. He's like, okay. Well, as I come running back, my dad's talking to Ed Parker. And my best friend's standing there looking like he just figured, oh, just some old guy that my dad's talking to, I walk up and bow to him, and then he's like, oh, red face. He bows to him and shakes his hand and stuff. That was the first time we met Mr. Parker. And then we found out about him with, Bruce Lee and other things he was doing. Matter of fact, when I was in Dave Hebler's studio, they said that Elvis was coming down to the studio.
Oh, wow.
So I begged my dad, drive me down there. And he goes, oh, he's not going to show up. I go, yeah, he is. They said he's going to show up. The dad drives me down there, wait like 2.5 hours, get a phone call. Sorry, they're not making it. So we leave. Said he's going to come back tomorrow night. I told my dad, come on, let's go down there. He goes, he's not going to show up. So he didn't take me. He showed up. So they have a big group picture there, and I could have been in the picture with Ed Parker, Elvis Presley, and his entourage and the karate people there at the school.
Dang.
But I missed it.
Dang, that sucks. Okay.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
But I will say though, the more I got to be around Mr. Parker at the Pasadena studio or wherever he went, I cannot truly explain the aura or the energy or the power of when he walked into a room, not even saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone like, oh my God, there he is. That's the man. And it was unbelievable. It was like, only thing I can compare it to is, let's say you had a movie star or a rock star in music that's been your legend, and then he walks in the room.
Yeah.
How you'd feel. But that was Mr. Parker, and that was across the board. It was amazing. No matter what art you were in. I've seen a lot of different arts there, Kaji Kimbo and stuff like that, Lima Lama way back when, and just when he walked in the room, you knew it.
And I've heard that from a lot of people who knew him. So that's kind of cool to keep hearing that over and over from different people. So yeah, I wish. I mean, I never even came close to having a chance to meet him, because I didn't really discover Kenpo until The Perfect Weapon came out, and my first time ever going to a Long Beach tournament was in '95. So yeah, kind of the same question with judo. Do you remember your very first Kenpo tournament that you did, and what belt you were?
That was the first one when I met Mr. Parker at the International.
That was your first one. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I believe at that time I was an orange belt.
Okay.
And the tournaments there were huge. I mean, bigger than anyone I've ever been to since then, in those early 80s and stuff. And the first one I went to, I sparred. I did okay, won a few matches and stuff like that. My best friend that sparred, he had this spinning back kick that was really great. And he went to fight and he lost. But during this time, you got this thing called a bye, where they were short one guy in the group. And so he was allowed to fight one more time. And he went up and shot, always said, as soon as the guy moves, do the spinning back kick and just shoot it really hard at him. And so, we did. And he hit the guy right in the chin and knocked him out. Got disqualified. But I remember Dave Hebler walking over, says, I don't care what you did. I would have gave you first place. That was a beautiful kick. It was funny. And again, back then, when I fought some of my first matches, we had a group of guys. There was 3 of us, and there was only like 6 guys fighting, maybe 8. And when we went up to fight, we saw these 3 guys, and we were young and dumb and cocky, and thought we were the thing. We've watched all the Bruce Lee's movies, 1,500 times, so we must be great. You know what I mean? So we're like, okay, and we see these 3 guys, and we said, oh look. These guys are dorks. That's what we called them back then, dorks, like nerdy guys. These guys are dorks. And so there was one guy that was a good fighter, and then I was a fighter a little better than him, and then we had a guy that was above me that was a good fighter. So we thought, well, here we go. We got first, second, and third. And it wasn't about us getting first. It was about bringing the trophy home to the school.
Yeah.
That was it. So we went up there. First guy went up. He got whooped by the first dork. I went up. I got whooped by the second dork. And the third guy went up and said, oh, for sure, this guy's going to win. He got whooped by the second dork. So it turns out that I guess us 3 were the dorks, not those other guys.
Nice.
So, and back then too, this is true. I know you've probably heard or seen movies where, you remember, what was it? The Karate Kid, take the leg.
Sweep the leg. Yep.
Yeah, sweep the leg, right? Back then, I am telling you, that was true.
Yeah.
So you would have a school against another school. And if you thought your school was losing, they would cheap shot the other guy, injure him, try to hurt him so that he wasn't good for his next fight, which might be one of your guys from the school.
Mm-hmm.
It truly did that because we were doing good. And I had one guy haul off and kick me right in the head, just about knocked me out. And it's like, well, there's no headshots when you're that young and an underbelt.
Mm-hmm.
But he almost knocked me out. And I was really dingy. I probably had a concussion back then.
Yeah.
But, you're young. Concussions are no big deal.
Right.
You got knocked out. Wake up. You're fine. Let's go fight. That's what it was. And, I couldn't fight worth a darn after that. We ended up losing. But, back then it used to be, take the guy out, try to injure him.
Yeah.
So and we're young, we're in our, we're teenagers, and that's how it was back then. And again, we weren't wearing gloves.
Yeah.
So fighting bare knuckle and stuff kind of changes the scenario.
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah. You punch somebody in the elbow and about break your hand. No, it doesn't feel good.
Oh yeah. I did that one. I mean, it wasn't even a tournament. We were just practicing techniques in class, and I was with another, I think we were both brown belts, the two of the highest ranking in class at the time. And we were just doing this back and forth technique where we basically one threw a punch and one threw this like perfect, side wrist block. And I threw the perfect punch and he threw the perfect block, and they connected and he fractured my wrist. So,
oh yeah. That just says, hey, it works.
Exactly.
You know the difference between a block and a strike? The amount of damage done.
Yeah.
It breaks something, it's a strike.
Yep, exactly. Talk about your black belt test. And I've interviewed a lot of Kenpo guys, and they all seem to have little different stories on how the black belt test went down. What was that experience like for you?
Scary.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I told Mr. Dye after I got my brown, I said, I'm not ready for my black. He said, yeah, you're going to be tested next month. I'm putting you up, because then the black belts would call putting you up, meaning I'm going to put you up as a black belt, but you're going underneath his name, not under your name.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to know me from anybody. All they're going to say is, oh, that's Paul Dye's black belt. So you're not going underneath your name. You're going underneath his.
Okay.
And so, you better know your stuff. So I told him, well, I'm not ready. And he says, yeah, you are. And then he basically told me, he says, well, if you don't test, I'm not going to teach you anymore. And I laughed and said, yeah, right. And he says, no, I'm serious. I can't teach you anymore until you get to this point, and then we can move forward. And so I said, okay.
Nice.
And I've told this story before, but I'll make it short and brief. There was a technique that Paul didn't teach us. And I asked him, well, are we going to do this technique? And he said, no. I said, well, what if they ask? And they said, well, they won't ask. Don't worry about it. So what if they ask? He goes, don't worry about it. I said, what if they ask? He goes, well, just tell them I didn't teach you. I said, okay. So we have a testing board of, let's say, 25 black belts. Frank Trejo is running the test.
Wow.
Mr. Parker's in the center. They do this test, this technique. And the technique is basically you get pushed from the back. You do this little roll. You turn around, face back towards the opponent, and do 2 kicks. And some other move. I don't remember what it was. And so we stood there. They called out that damn technique. Sure enough, everyone does a technique. They do the little roll, do the little kicks, and now they're facing us. It's totally obvious. We're in the front row too. Mm-hmm. And me and this other guy that was also going for his black belt under Paul stood there. And so Mr. Parker looks right at us. Then he looks at Mr. Trejo and says, call out the technique again. Everybody does the same thing. We just stand there. And Mr. Parker says, gentlemen, did you not hear the technique? And the guy next to me is looking at me like, oh, I know damn well he's not going to answer. That means I have to say something. So I said, yes, sir, we heard the technique. And he goes, why didn't you do it? I said, our instructor didn't teach us that technique. And he says, who's your instructor? He knew who he was. Paul Dye jumps up, says, sir, I'm their instructor. He goes, oh, Paul. He says, so Mr. Dye, he goes, why didn't you teach him the technique? He goes, sir, I don't like that technique. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fail my test. We're getting kicked out, or we're going to get beat up something. I was just scared stiff. Wow. And he said, okay, continue. And he continued. At the end of the test, everyone got promoted, right? Mm-hmm. Except for a couple of people, which was really embarrassing. I've seen people fail in front of Mr. Parker.
Yeah.
That's rough. But at the end, he says, oh, and by the way, Mr. Dye, you just been promoted to your 3rd degree black.
Wow.
Promoted him. Right then, I was like, oh my God, that was awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. After you tell him you don't like the technique.
Never heard that story before. Wow.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was amazing. True story.
Nice.
True story. Yeah.
And you got promoted too? I mean, you passed?
Yes. Okay. But about 40 minutes prior to me ending the test, we were doing a 3-man attack. And I got done doing a technique, and I usually run to the back of the end of the line. But you're supposed to stay up there because you're the 3rd guy. And I ran back, and they said, hey, you got to go back up front. So I run up front. In Pasadena had these mats, but if you hit a certain area, there was like a 4x4 underneath. It just dipped a little bit. So as I stepped back, I hit that thing, twisted my ankle, heard it pop, and I hit the ground. And so Paul Dye jumps off the seat, runs over, grabs me, and looks at me, and he'll stay down. And I'm looking over, and I see Mr. Parker staring at me. And I said, no, I'm not staying down. So I got up. I had to spar for 40 minutes with an ankle that was like twice the size. So I sprained my ankle.
Dang.
I got promoted. We went out to eat. And I wore my black belt as a tie when we went out to eat. And then I went to urgent care.
Wow.
And the surgeon guy that was there, he's looking at my ankle and said, what'd you do? And I was all proud, And I said, well, I just got my black belt. He goes, well, when did you do this? I said, I don't know, probably 3-4 hours ago. And he's like, well, why didn't you come in? I said, well, we went out to dinner. I said, I thought that was pretty tough of me to go 40 more minutes in fighting with an ankle like this. And he looked at me and he says, and I'm sitting up on the table there, and he's straddling my left leg as he's looking at my right ankle. And he said, I go, I thought that was pretty tough of me to continue fighting for 40 more minutes with this ankle like this. And he says, there's a fine line between being tough and stupid. And I swung my left foot towards his groin slightly. And I said, well, you're not in a good position to say that right now. He laughed and I laughed. I was laid up for about 5 days at home. And all I did was take my black belt and I'd roll it up like a snail, and flip it out, then roll it the other way just to loosen it up. So I spent a whole week just flipping this black belt back and forth. But it also scared me because, here I'm a black belt and I'm thinking, people are going to ask me questions. I have to know all these answers. And I was so scared someone's going to ask me a question being a black belt. You're supposed to have all the right answers. And I was afraid I didn't have all the right answers. So that was intimidating to me. Every belt I've ever had that I've achieved, I always thought that I had to work harder for that belt rank to be, legit, to be what I consider a real black belt.
Yeah.
Because you can have as many ranks as you want, but your black belt's 2 inches wide.
Right.
And it covers 2 inches of your ass. The rest you have to back up.
Right. You mentioned earlier that Mr. Dye was a blue belt when he started teaching you those first private lessons. So what rank were you when you first got involved in the teaching side of martial arts?
Well, my best friend couldn't afford to take the karate classes. So basically I started teaching when I was a yellow belt.
Really?
Because I would go and learn these techniques. Then I'd come home and teach him it.
Nice.
And then when he got a little older, he was able to start to take the classes. And so he was able to get promoted faster because everything I learned, I would go home and teach him. So basically when I was like a yellow, orange belt, I was teaching him because he couldn't, at the time we were young and his parents couldn't afford the classes at the time. And then I started teaching, when I was help instruct kids and stuff like that. Probably I would say blue and green, brown and black.
Okay.
But I always say I officially didn't start teaching until 1986. I bought a house when I was 25 years old, converted the garage to a studio, and started taking on friends and people that wanted to take classes for me because it was a distance between my house and Mr. Dye's house. Mm-hmm. And, I was basically, I asked Mr. Dye, is it okay if I teach? He says, yes, but, the curriculum that we're doing, we need to stay true to it and not change it. It's what we do. And everything has to be 100%. I said, not a problem. I had a phone back when you had regular phones, not a cell phone.
Yep.
And I had a phone I installed in my garage. And if there was a question or something, I would answer the question to the student. I said, but hang on a second. And I'd call Mr. Dye. I said, hey, this is the question that was asked. This is my answer. What do you think? He said, that's the right answer. But every time I would do that, he would say, yes, you're 100% right. Here's one more thing to add to it. Okay. It was always one more thing to add to what I told him. And in that return, gave me an extra teaching tool. One more thing. The interesting thing is that when one of my black belts started teaching out of his garage, same thing. And one night I was over there and he was teaching and stuff, and he'd asked me a question. And I said, I knew the answer. I said, you know what? I'm going to have you do something. This is what I said. I'm going to have you call Mr. Dye, tell him what your answer is, and see what he says. Okay. And sure enough, he did the same thing to him. And we're talking years later.
Yeah.
And so it's been passed down ever since. Even today, if I'd answered a question to a student or anybody that had asked the question, I could call him and say, this is what I said. And he goes, yeah, you're 100% right. Here's one more thing. And to this day, he will do the same exact thing. He would add one more little thing that improves me on being an instructor. Nice. So it's a learning lesson my entire life.
What belt were you when you started teaching out of your own garage? What rank?
I was a black belt.
First degree?
First degree black belt.
Okay. Do you remember your first student that you personally brought from white belt all the way to black yourself?
Yeah, there were two of them.
Okay.
At that time, there were two that were coming up from white to black. And for me personally, if I'm going to take them to my instructor's house or have my instructor come down on a testing board at my house, they better be good.
Yeah.
Because they are, to me, to this day, they're the same. They're a reflection of you, whether you're yellow belt, going for black belt or whatever. And man, I really pushed a lot on these guys because, again, like I told you before, they're coming in on my name, not their name.
Right.
So depending on how they look, depends on how I look. And I always thought, I'm not going to look bad. So I would push and strive even better. You know, when we would go to the internationals, I'd have a group of my of my students. And I would just like to feel, me personally, that my level that I expect is high. That's what I expect. I just expect my level to be high, and I expect them to be the same. And so we would go to other tournaments. We didn't care if we won or lost. We, of course, would want to win, but it wasn't the purpose to try to go and beat everyone. The purpose was to train for the internationals, because that was big. That was the biggest in the United States.
Yeah.
So we'd go to smaller tournaments to compete. And we would take a group. I think it was 19 people that were going to the internationals from probably orange belt to black belt. And we would go to these other little tournaments and we would win. But I would say, you guys aren't working hard enough. You're not doing it good enough. Yeah, but we took first. It doesn't matter. First there is not first at the internationals. That's worldwide.
Yeah.
You know, these are people coming from around the world. Competition there is really high. So we trained and did extra classes and stayed late. I mean, we'd start at 7:00 at night and some people wouldn't leave till midnight, you know? And so when we went to this internationals, we had 19 people competing. We came home with 23 first place trophies.
Wow.
Only one second place trophy. And the only reason the person got a second place is they competed against his sister.
Okay.
Usually we wouldn't have our students compete against each other, but this one particular event, they ended up competing against each other, and one took first, the other one took second.
Yeah.
So I got a picture of me in the garage with all these trophies and medals and stuff. It was great. I mean, and back then, the tournaments and days were long, real long. I remember when I was a blue belt and I went to fight the internationals, and there were 630 guys in our division.
Wow.
They split the division. I had like 320 in mine. And my buddy, he had about the same in his. We lined up at 8:00 in the morning. My first fight was 10 a.m. Second fight's at noon. I don't know how many more fights I did, but I lost at 11:40 at night. Wow. And I was glad I lost. And I didn't even make it the brackets of first, second, third. There were so many people.
Wow.
And so my friend, he lost a little after midnight. And we were glad. We went home and came back Sunday morning because we couldn't afford to stay in a hotel. We would drive all the way home and then turn around and drive all the way back the next morning, compete again in whatever division we were going to compete in that next day. But the tournament, I remember Mr. Dye running a fighting ring that ended at 2:30 in the morning.
Jeez.
Yeah, and he would start at 8 in the morning, and 2:30 in the morning was the end of all the matches and stuff. So it was grueling back then. But boy, you got to see some great people.
Yeah, that's crazy. I know we just, in my core system's traditional Taekwondo, and I remember not a lot. I can think of at least 3 tournaments over the years that went past midnight. I think the longest one we had ended around 4 in the morning. That was like a big federation tournament and stuff like that. But
then that's crazy.
The thing was crazy. Like 2 of them were because they were very big. 1 of them because it was not organized very well. That's the only reason it went past midnight. Yeah.
I get it, because at the internationals, they'd have like 30 rings going at once.
Yeah, and these are ones for like the Taekwondo tournaments. We'd have maybe 8.
Yeah.
So obviously nowhere near as big, but yeah, still kind of crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, that was the highlight back then.
So think back then to, you were like a orange belt, yellow belt. You started teaching your friend, and then, all the way it was, blue belt, brown belt. You started teaching in class, black belt. You opened your own school, all the way through now. Over all those years, what do you think has changed the most about your teaching style?
Being able to take someone from point A to point B with less words and get them there.
Nice. Okay.
So when I first started, I talking a mile a minute. In order to get someone to point A to point B and being proficient about it, that you can actually get someone to black belt quicker. Not, of course, for their ability and, how they are athletically and stuff, all that in place. But if I'm able to get someone to do a move in 3 words instead of 10, I'm actually training them faster because I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
And you get better at it, in my opinion, is by your students. Your students tell you things that make you teach them different. You can have 10 people in front of you, but not everyone's going to learn the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had one guy trying to teach him to do an inward hand sword to the neck. And he was doing the old get smart judo chop, Judy chop, and he was all stiff and he couldn't do it. And again, I was never good in sports, but I would watch motion. So I said, did you play a sport in high school? He says, yeah. I go, what'd you play? He goes, baseball. I said, okay. I go, what position? He goes, I was pitcher. I go, you know how to throw a curveball? He goes, oh yeah. I said, and this guy's in his 30s now.
Mm-hmm.
He was in high school, but really loved baseball, the sport. And so I said, show me how to throw a curveball. And he goes, oh, you just grab it and you just do this. And I said, no. Really slow it down. You put your 3 fingers here. I go, when do you release the ball? He goes, right at the last second and it curves. I said, okay, I want you to do the same thing with your hands, but I want you to try to throw a curveball as fast as you can around my neck. Holy heck, man. He threw that thing, about tore my head off. Nice. Ever since then, he threw a hand sword and about kill you. But I have to find the thing that they can relate to in order to get them to understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Or to do the movement. And that was one lesson learned. Mm-hmm. So now I learned that lesson to maybe add on to my little toolbox of teaching.
Okay. I like it. I mentioned in the intro, you married, kids, grandkids. So have your kids and your grandkids all got involved in martial arts?
Well, so my youngest grandson is 10.
Okay.
My oldest grandson is 22.
Okay.
So the 2 oldest ones that were a year apart, I got them to take a little bit of karate from me when they were, let's say, 7 or 8, just a little bit. They never were interested.
Okay.
It was heartbreaking for me. I had none of my grandsons, and I had 5 that were interested. And I'm like, you don't know what you're getting here. You're getting something free that it'll change your life and all this stuff. They just wasn't interested. So I ended up not teaching any of them until recently.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a real quick story.
Mm-hmm.
So my son-in-law, when I first met him, it was like, okay, another loser for my daughter, But great, another guy. So what I would do, my wife and me would plan this, and all my karate guys are in on it. When she would bring a guy over to introduce him to me, I'd be in the garage with my back towards the door to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, okay, I want you guys to do this, because they're all ready. Okay, he's coming to the door. So they're all playing it up. So what I would do is I would go, okay, this is how I really want you to do it. And one of my students would come up and I'd just lay into him and slam him on the ground. I'd look like the meanest guy you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And then I'd turn around and go, oh, hey, how you doing? Right? Mm-hmm. So I'd do that to, a few of the guys that came over and stuff. And that kind of ended that relationship. Here's this other guy. His name's Matt. And he's my son-in-law. And I turned around and go, hey, how you doing? He goes, oh my God, you do karate? I love this. And he bowed before he came into my garage. And I went, oh my God.
Nice.
Great. He didn't play it up. He took karate with his grandma years ago.
Okay.
And he was like thrilled with it. So I'm like, okay, maybe I will like this guy. Well, apparently I did, because he's been married to my daughter for quite a while.
Okay.
So he's been training with me. Well, his youngest son started training with me. Mm-hmm. So he just got his yellow belt. When we went to Ireland, my son-in-law got his brown belt.
Nice.
He got promoted in front of everybody. And his oldest son, which is 22, him and his fiance are now taking it from me.
Okay.
So they just started their white belts. They just started. So now I've got 2 grandsons. And I have another grandson that just turned 16, but he lives a little ways away from me. Mm-hmm. And I made him a deal that when he starts to be able to drive to the house, I'll pay for his gas for him to come and go, and I'll teach him here for free. And so he's hopefully going to be doing that in the next 3 months. So
nice.
Slowly but surely, I'm getting my grandsons involved.
Okay. Very cool. And what about your wife? She ever train?
So she's never trained officially through Kenpo.
Okay.
But she's done my women's self-defense classes.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, for one example, so my wife likes to grab you by the throat, mm-hmm. basically. She'll grab you by the throat, she'll elbow you, and she'll knee you and stuff. Her name is Laura, and she, one time, went with her girlfriends, went and had dinner, and they were having a drink, and there was a guy in this little lounge area and started hopping seats over to her and walked up to her and says, oh, hey, how you doing? Trying to pick up on her. And her and her girlfriend are like, yeah, go away, And so the guy goes, oh, hey, I noticed you got a big ring on your finger. Is your husband here? You're married? She goes, yeah, I'm married. He goes, well, so he let you come out like this and have a drink? And she goes, yeah. And so her girlfriend says, you need to really just kind of leave her alone. He goes, well, I'm just asking. He goes, what? And he goes, well, he's not here. He goes, no, he's teaching. He goes, oh, what's he teach? He says, karate. He goes, oh, is he this big black belt? She goes, yeah. He goes, well, are you this black belt? He goes, no, I just did self-defense. He goes, oh, really? He goes, well, what if someone did this and pulled her ponytail? There's this technique called squeezing the peach. She basically palm-heeled him in the groin and elbowed him right off the bar stool.
Nice.
And this guy's grabbing his crotch and going, oh my God, I can't believe he hit me and stuff. And then her girlfriend leaves over and says, I told you not to mess with her. So he leaves. The bartender buys them both a drink. They come back and she was so excited to tell us about it,
Nice.
And so it works. And then another time I was doing a self-defense class and I usually wear a chest protector. And I said, you're going to do an inward elbow and hit me in the chest. And so she said, okay. She goes, what about your chest protector? I said, don't worry. I'll maybe be ready for it. I'll suck in so I could take the hit, but it's not going to be as hard as it normally would be. And she says, okay. And she hit me. And oh my God, right square in the chest. I'm ready for it. I'm prepared for it. I'm sucking it in. She hit me so hard that I started talking like Minnie Mouse for a solid minute. And so I had two doctors that were in there and I asked them what just happened. They said, well, can you tell me what happened to you? I said, but yes. I said, it felt like I couldn't get enough oxygen or air volume to my vocal cords to speak correctly. And they laughed. They said, yeah, she just spasms your diaphragm. And I went, oh my God. Made me feel so great because I thought, can you imagine if someone wasn't ready and took an elbow right to the face by her? So yeah. She watches all my classes, even when I work offshore. She'll go out and watch my other students teach, my other black belts teach. She watches all the classes, so she's got a real good eye for it, but she can hit pretty hard.
I like it.
I've done the same thing with my daughters. Both my daughters could definitely tear someone up. So
nice.
I feel good about that.
That's awesome. All right. So over your martial arts career, do you have a favorite weapon you've got to train with?
I don't use any weapons.
None at all? No.
Because a weapon to me is nothing more than an extension of your arm, of your hand. So I can put a pin, anything in my hand and use it as a weapon. But I never, when I was young, I did nunchucks because it was a Bruce Lee thing.
Yeah.
We had to cut them out of broomsticks and make our own stuff. But, I didn't ever really use a weapon because I always thought that I didn't want something to happen where they take the weapon away from me. Now, if my arm and my hands are a weapon, they're not going to rip up my arm and beat me with it.
Yeah.
It's going to be attached to me, so they're not going to do that. So that's one reason why I never really got into weapons. Plus, the other thing is you couldn't carry certain weapons. You can't carry, nunchucks with you. Oh, you get caught with that. But, you can get in trouble for that.
Oh, yeah.
Go to jail for certain weapons. So I'm like, then I don't need one. But if there's something around I could use and still do my techniques, including the weapon to it, with the same, fluidity and the same method of striking, then I just use whatever's around.
Okay. And then how about talking to you this past almost hour and hearing your story? Any thoughts of ever writing a book?
Writing a book would be great. But mine would be the stories of the things that have happened, the things I've seen and stuff like that. I think that'd be great. I'd love to be able to do that.
I say go for it. 2 years from now, you decide to write a book. You send me the link. I'll add it to your episode. So
that would be great. Yeah. That'd be a thought because I do have some pretty crazy stories that some people probably wouldn't believe.
Yeah,
that I witnessed.
Nice. Oh, yeah. I encourage that to all my guests. Nowadays, it's so easy now to self-publish compared to 20 some years ago when you had to go out and find a publisher and do all this. And now you can, if you think you have a good story, you can publish it. And if people buy it, they buy it. If not, they don't.
I might try to do that because I will say way back when, you see the movies where you'd see karate people coming into studios and challenging the master or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That stuff happened back then.
Oh, yeah.
They would come in the studio and, oh, my gosh, I would be like, there was one, I won't say who, but some biker guys came in and they were maybe a little high. And, there's also an alternative to martial arts. And that was a 357 Magnum I saw an instructor pull out and told me to get out of the studio.
Wow.
But that studio also had a door attached to it that was a bar next door.
Oh, geez.
And so they would knock on the door and the instructors would come up and they couldn't get a guy out. So they would send the black belts in to take a guy down, drag him out the back door, and then they'd go back and start teaching. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy.
All right. Over your martial arts career, is there one philosophy that's at the top of your list that's super important to you?
Philosophy? Well, what I think is, if you're going to teach, give 100%.
Okay.
Because that's what you should expect.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not given what you should be given to a person. Be humble, do the best you can do, because they're going to be a reflection of you and you want them to be great.
Yeah.
No different than your children. That's what I like.
Okay, good. How about a worst martial arts related injury? You had any bad ones over the years?
Oh, yeah. Not for me.
No? Okay.
Well, wait a minute. So me and Mr. Dyer were working out. Not a bad injury, but we headbutted each other and he split my head open. And I thought it was awesome.
Okay.
It was totally awesome. It was like, but it was my fault. I went forward too much. He was doing we were just working out and he went forward and I went forward just to make it look good. And I went forward a little too much.
Dang.
I broke every finger I got, but one twice.
Wow.
Most of those were in judo.
Okay.
I've jammed some things and I had one rib cracked, but the worst injury wasn't mine.
Okay.
I was sparring this guy, and back then it's kind of limited now, but groin shots were open. And this guy had his hands open, and I shot a groin shot, kicked him in the hand. The guy's shaking his hand, and the instructor said, "Hey, close your hand and make a fist." We're fighting again, haul off, kick him in the groin again, hit his finger again. And the referee says, "Close your hand, make a fist. You're going to really hurt your hand." And then we're fighting again. We're talking hard stuff. This is no gloves. This is bare knuckle thing.
Yeah.
And I kicked him again. And I broke his finger, and his finger was like a compound fracture where the bone sticks out. Grabbed his hand, blood's coming down. He turned pale white and about passed out. So they had to take him to the hospital. So it wasn't my injury. It was the injury I caused to him. And not on purpose. Just his hand got in front of his cup.
Okay. And so what are your thoughts on MMA, UFC type stuff? Is that something you're a fan of? Do you watch it?
I watch it. I like it for the things they do and stuff. I'm not into MMA myself. The ground and pound and stuff is great. It's a sport. It's a violent sport. It's great to watch. It just doesn't fit me for me to ever do anything like that or be a part of. I mean, I like watching. They're talented people. They're athletic, and they're great, but it's like boxing, or kickboxing or Muay Thai stuff. They're all great stuff to watch, but it's also entertaining. But you can learn some stuff from it. So
true.
Pretty crazy.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I got a few fun questions we use to wrap up the interview. So we were just talking about MMA. I know you said you personally would never do it, but let's say you would. Let's say an alternate universe, you were going to get into that octagon and fight. What is your walk-up music going to be? What song's playing as you're taking that walk into the cage?
Oh, man, that's a question I have never been asked. I have no clue.
Like a favorite, like a pump-up song maybe used to work out, or you're driving and you hear the song, you just got to crank it up. And
I do like the drum set, and it's a short set by Phil Collins.
In the Air Tonight?
In the Air Tonight. Nice. That drum set boom, 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 is pretty motivating.
We had a local MMA fighter about 10 years ago that used to use that song for his walk-up music, and you're the first person that's ever said that. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Just that particular drum set there.
Yep, that's cool.
And then pray I'd win.
There you go.
And not get injured.
All right. Who are 3, 4, 5 names you'd put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Ed Parker, Paul Dye.
Nice.
Steve LeBounty.
Nice.
Bob White. And probably Frank Trejo and Ed Downey.
Nice. Good list. All Kenpo across the board. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
I like all the Ed Parker's Infinite Insights.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
I like those. I think the one where this is kind of interesting. The one book that has the quotes of like, he who hesitates meditates in the horizontal position. That particular quote. It's interesting that when I first read it, I'd read some of those and they meant something to me.
Yeah.
And then several years later, I read it again and they made different meanings to me. So as I mature, I noticed that those quotes that he said has different meanings.
Nice. I like that. All right. This one you may or may not have an answer for, so we'll see. But do you have a favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into video games?
No, I never did.
Okay.
I never did.
No worries.
I did it myself. Made up my own Kenpo games just as... There's one that me and Paul would do called Two Punch.
Yeah. And
then I made it where there's 3 people involved or 4 or 5 people calling. We called it Kenpo Twister, which is fun. I still teach that.
Really?
I did that in Ireland.
Okay. All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
TV show. Way back when, Green Hornet.
Nice.
I used to, when I was really younger, loved to watch Kung Fu.
That
was pretty cool.
Yep.
And that was probably the 2 shows.
Any of the new ones that you've ever watched and enjoyed?
Not really.
Warrior, Into the Badlands, Cobra Kai, any of those?
No, I never. I'll watch them, but it was like nothing that was ever, because my I guess probably because the realism isn't what is real.
Yeah.
So
no, I get that.
But I loved like regular movies. man, I can't remember the guy's name, but he would set a watch. Denzel Washington.
Oh yeah, in the Equalizer movies.
Equalizer movies. Love that.
Okay.
You know, he'd set a watch and he'd see all these things happening and then do them. I always like that.
That was kind of similar to Robert Downey Jr. in the Sherlock Holmes movie when he slowed it down.
Yes.
And I actually interviewed Robert Downey Jr.'s instructor who helped him do that scene. And he kind of told me like the background of how that came about. And it was extremely interesting. It was very cool to hear how they came upon that idea and stuff. And he goes, yeah, that's how the mind works. You slow it down, you see it happening. And yeah, that's kind of cool. I enjoyed that.
Parker had said in a class that I was in, he said that your weapons function as if they have a mind of their own. So like, let's say your right hand hits somebody in the stomach and he bends over. Mm-hmm. He says, like, you take one of your eyeballs out and you screw it in the bottom of your foot. Your foot sees it. Your foot kicks him in the face. Well, then all of a sudden you take the eyeball out of your foot and it puts it in your elbow and your elbow says, oh, I see a midsection shot. And your elbow hits him. And your mind creates like a movie that it's just watching, but then all your weaponries throughout your body are functioning independently as they have a mind of their own.
I like it. Okay. And this one you may have just answered, but a favorite martial arts movie.
I did like The Perfect Weapon.
Yes, me too.
I like that. Matter of fact, all my students went to it. I guess the people there didn't like it because we were calling out the techniques he was doing.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah. I got to be in one movie years ago. Mm-hmm. You know how you have like A-rated movies, B-rated movies, C-rated movies. This was not even on the chart. It was not a very good movie in my opinion.
Okay.
But they still show it. And it's called Hot Boys, Boyz. And there's a fight scene with Muhammad and me. And I'm in the movie and it's my 10 seconds of movie deal, and I was in that movie called Hot Boys.
Is that the one with Gary Busey in that?
Yeah, Gary Busey, Silk the Shocker, Jess Speakman.
Yep.
Jeff had called me and Paul and asked if there were several in black belts if we wanted to be in the movie, and we said yeah. I will tell you a quick story on that.
Yeah.
There was a guy, real big sound guy. He was yelling at everyone, quiet on the set, screaming at everybody. He's just like a big bully dude. And half of us in the crowd was thinking, like, man, we'd like to go smack that guy because he's yelling at everybody. So they decide we're going to run a line. You know what a line is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we decide to run a line. They're going to film. This guy yells out, quiet on the set. Me and Paul Dye, I think, are running it, leading it off. Everyone's getting slammed. I mean, hammered.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're hitting the ground and everything. And then they say cut. And the entire set was dead quiet for probably, it felt like 30 seconds.
Okay.
And then one person started applauding. Then everyone started applauding. Like, what the heck was that? They did one take of it, right? And when we got done with it, I looked at Paul and I said, that'll never be in the movie. He goes, what do you mean? I go, it'll never be in the movie. I go, why? I go, because that blew the entire movie away. The actor could never do anything like that. And that would take the whole movie away from the actor. The lead actor, I thought. And it never was filmed. It never came out on the thing. The only thing that was filmed was me and Muhammad fighting in the studio.
Okay.
I'm the guy on the right.
Interesting. Wow.
You'll see Paul Dye and a bunch of other karate people in the background.
I'll have to go back and rewatch that.
Yeah, Jeff Speakman's refereeing the match.
Okay.
That's right dead in the middle of the movie, but that was my little claim to fame.
Nice. All right, final question. This one, any movie you've seen in your whole life, a favorite movie fight scene? Doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. You mentioned like the Equalizer one. I don't know if that's your absolute favorite or you have another one. People pick Rocky movies, Star Wars movies, superhero movies. A lot of people pick Chuck Norris versus Bruce Lee. I mean, anything goes, just a favorite fight scene.
Probably the fight scenes in Enter the Dragon. I think when I was younger, me and my friends went to go watch that. I think we watched it 38 times.
Wow. At the theater?
At the theater.
Wow.
Yeah. It had to be Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. That was my favorite fight scenes and stuff like that.
The first time I ever saw that on the big screen was 2 years ago when they re-released it for the 50th anniversary. So,
right. Yeah, we waited in line to watch that thing, and then we watched it. I'm telling you, I remember I counted 38 times I went and saw that thing.
Wow.
And I've seen it since then, but back then it was 38 times.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. I will say something else that was kind of interesting. This is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Back in early 80s. I couldn't tell you the exact year. We were at the internationals. There was some guy up on stage. It was probably 83 or something like that. A guy on stage with a big samurai sword. If you look it up on YouTube, where he does this demonstration, he cuts this guy's throat he was trying to cut a cucumber on his throat, and he had an Adam's apple.
Yeah, that was 1996 internationals.
Okay, so you know what happened, right?
Yeah, I know who it was and everything. Yep.
The craziest thing is, I was offshore 2 months ago. A medic that was on there also did Kenpo.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking. His best friend is the guy that got his throat cut. And I was standing at the stage on the ground, watching it. And I remember walking by it was a martial arts guy. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a weapons expert. And I was watching this guy going like, this guy's kind of crazy with this samurai sword, right? Right before he cut his throat and he was trying to set this cucumber up on his throat, I heard this master in weaponry go, watch, he's going to cut him. He's going to cut his throat. And I stopped and looked at it. And sure enough, he cut his throat.
Wow.
And I got the still pictures of them taking him out in an ambulance stuff from my students' parents that took pictures of the whole thing, right?
Yep.
I meet this guy a month ago or 2 months ago. It's his best friend. He called him up when we were talking on the phone.
Wow.
The guy that got his throat cut. I was like, that is crazy. I mean, you talk about small world.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And I was in the Gulf of America when I met this guy. Yeah, no one knew who he was. It was after Mr. Parker had passed away. Mr. Parker would always interview the people and see their demonstrations, but I was not happy with that person. I never met him, never talked to him, but just from the actions of what happened that night was not.
Well, I mean, from what I heard, I wasn't at that one. I was in California at the time, but I couldn't make the tournament. I was supposed to go. But from what I heard, you when you do that, you're supposed to go straight down, straight up, and he pulled is what happened.
He tapped it once and then tapped it the second time. Second time, he cut it. But like I said, a master of weaponry was sitting in the stands, and I was walking by watching it because he was up on the stage. And when he said that, I just stopped. And there's this old video of they called Faces of Death or something years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual video they played on television shows me walking right by the camera.
Wow.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, before I let you go, is there anything I forgot to ask you or last minute stuff we want to get out there? And if any links you want me to share, I will put out when the episode comes out. But any last minute stuff you want to get out there?
No, I just want to say thank you very much. I feel privileged to be able to be on your show. And I just really want to thank you. That was very nice of you.
Hey, this has been a lot of fun. I know we've chatted on the phone 2-3 times before this, so I knew a lot about you just from that, and Paul spoke very highly of you, and I'm glad we made this happen, and I think the interview is going to turn out really well for the listeners.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Wrap up today's episode by taking your own training to the next level with Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, the book that's redefining martial arts thinking. Find Martial Theory on Amazon today. Join the worldwide movement at martialtheoryu.com, where you'll find Q&A sessions, live events, and direct guidance from Steve himself. Use code EverydayMA for 20% off for life. That's martialtheoryu.com, code EverydayMA. Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.